Oh, Brad, you're muted. We can't hear you. Or doesn't look like you're muted. It looks like
Yeah, it's odd because I can't seem to start the video. So I don't know. We've got some wonky connections tonight.
Can you hear me now, Joe?
yes, loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Oh, hang on one second. I'm going to change something.
And Jeffrey Gagno's up to join.
Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That was user error. I'll start over. Good evening, everybody. I'm Brad Walker, Chair of the Boston Landmarks Commission. I'd like to call this meeting of the Boston Landmarks Commission to order on May 27th, 2025 at 6:05 p.m. I just see Commissioner Gagno has joined us. Present are Commissioners Jacques Freeman, Orlando Baraducci, Samaha, Hoffman, Gagno, Hart, Ford Hyatt, and Haney. Did I miss anybody? I'm getting a little feedback, so I just want to check something. Also present tonight are Staff Architect Chelsea Blanchard, Director of Design Review Joe Cornish, Executive Director of the Boston Landmarks Commission Elizabeth Sherva, Director of the Office of Historic Preservation Kathy Kotaridis, Preservation Assistant Sarah Lawton. Did I miss anybody on staff? All right. You can participate in this hearing by going to the Zoom meeting link posted on our agenda online at https://zoom.us/j/98692200856 or by calling 301-715-8592 and entering the meeting ID 98692200856. Alicia, I'm going to mute you because I'm getting feedback. Alicia, I'm going to mute you because I'm getting feedback. Alicia, I'm going to mute you because I'm getting feedback. Alicia, I'm going to.
Oh boy. Okay.
Sorry, Felicia, I'm not able to mute you. Can you mute yourself? I'm not able to mute you. Can you? Not sure what's happening there. Some kind of reverb. Not sure what's happening there.
Yeah.
All right.
Sign off. I'll sign back on. Sign off.
Okay. You may also submit written comments to us via email at blc@boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including March 28th, 2025 amendment extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30th, 2027, we are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Boston Landmarks Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. This hearing is being recorded. All conversations between commissioners should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has been adjourned. This time, if there are any media or elected officials present, I would like to ask you to please identify yourself by stating your name, title, and affiliation. In order to do that, or in order to speak at any time during this hearing, you'll need to use the raise your hand function on the Zoom platform so that someone can unmute you.
Brad, Commissioner Selena Barrios Miller has joined us.
Thank you. I saw Allison Poltinas here. Are you press or are you just Allison? Maybe you're not here.
I'm gonna let her speak.
Hi, Allison. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, I'm sorry. I am pressed tonight for the Fenway News. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. If there's nobody else wishing to identify themselves as press or a public official, I will briefly read tonight's agenda into the record before we move on. The first item, excuse me, on our agenda is ratification of meeting minutes from May 13th, 2025. And we'll move on to some administrative review of design review items. Then we move on to a advisory review of some proposed modifications to Boston City Hall. And then staff updates and adjournment. So first up is the meeting minutes. Meeting minutes for May 13th, 2025 were circulated to commission members prior to the meeting. And at this time, I would be happy to hear from any commissioners who wish to make edits or changes or suggestions regarding that. Being no comment, I will entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes as submitted.
I can make that motion, Brad.
Thank you, Justine. And a second for that, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Fadi. And voting would be, well, let me recount. 1, 2, 3, 6. Okay, voting will be alternate commissioners Hoffman, Hart, and Ward Hyatt. And I'll start with Commissioner Jacques. Commissioner Jacques. She might be trying to call back in. I'm going to come back. Commissioner Freeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando.
Yes.
Commissioner Baraducci.
Yes.
Commissioner Samaha.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Gagnon. I'm sorry, excuse me. Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Commissioner Ward Hyatt.
Yes.
I vote yes, and I'll go back and see is Commissioner Jacques with us. If not, I will take Commissioner Gagnon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry for that.
That's all right. Sorry to call you unexpectedly. Next, we're going to move on to design review. There was not a design review subcommittee tonight, meeting earlier tonight, as there typically is, because of a lack of an agenda. But there are some administrative review items. So I would recognize the chair of the design review subcommittee, David Baraducci, to lead us through those administrative review items.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brad. Yes, these were, I'm going to read these applications in, and these were applications that came before the landmark staff, and they were approved based on their adherence to the standards or criteria. So the motion at the end of reading them in would be to accept the staff's approvals. First is application 25.0881, the Christian Science Church Complex, 250 Mass Ave. And it's regarding at the plaza level to replace 3 diseased linden trees. Next, 25.0855, the Old North Church, 195 Salem Street, regarding installation of security cameras at exterior elevations of the buildings. Next, 25.0848, this is the Old South Meeting House at 310 Washington Street. And it's at the exterior, restore a corner lamp on the corner of Milk and Washington Street, and of the Old South Meeting House. And the next is 25.0849, again, the Old South Meeting House, 310 Washington Street. And this is on the interior, replace an existing 1990s pendant lights with Monterey Hanging Lanterns. And the last is 25.0857. And this is at 15 Wigglesworth Street. And it's at the garden level. Dig window well around the center bay window, rebuild a retaining wall using red brick or cinder blocks, enlarge a central casement window height, but maintain the identical width. and install a new casement window. So again, the motion is to accept the staff's approval of these applications.
Thank you, David. Is there a, well, that's a motion by David Baraducci. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Justine. And Commissioner Jacques, you're back with us?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start with you.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Orlando,
Yes.
Commissioner Baraducci,
Yes.
Commissioner Samaha,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrios Milner,
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman,
Yes.
Commissioner Gagno,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we move on to advisory design review for Boston City Hall. Boston City Hall is a City of Boston landmark. As I think we all know, there's sort of ongoing proposals for a number of improvements and changes to Boston City Hall, and they've come to us tonight seeking an advisory review. So this is a kind of informal conversation. No vote would be taken. And the chair would recognize, who am I recognizing? Someone from Sasaki?
Or Brad, before we get there, I think I'll just read some staff comments quickly.
Okay.
And we're pleased we're able to put this on tonight's agenda because this is a shorter agenda. And we've been working very closely with Sasaki and property management. So I'll just start by saying staff have reviewed the proposed alterations with Sasaki and property management. A site visit by staff took place on April 23rd, followed by a desk review on May 19th. The proposed changes are aligned with the conservation management plan for City Hall. Staff advised the design team to consider the following after our desk review and site visit. Staff is amenable to the proposed work at the central skylight. Removal of the existing gridded skylight structures does include the removal of original fabric. Staff understands that the skylights leak and do not introduce much natural light into the interior spaces below. Staff recommends that the pattern of the gridded skylights be replicated on the proposed glass walkable surface. Staff advised that careful consideration be paid to the use of wire-cut brick pavers, maintaining the existing brick with mortar joint paving at the flat area of the fourth floor terrace, specifically where it abuts the curtain walls. Where low concrete walls and steps are proposed to be removed, staff would like to see a paving pattern that demarcates the location of these removed features. Staff advised that the proposed work to rebuild the Congress Street steps in kind be submitted as an administrative review application. So I think these comments will make a lot more sense when you see the presentation. But staff architect Chelsea Blanchard, did I miss anything, or did I think I caught everything?
I don't think so. The only thing I would add is that, it might seem like a lot all at once, but sort of allowing an ADA accessible entrance up through this space does require removing quite a bit of original concrete wall material. And that's why we were asking for the ghosting in the paving pattern. And then, which we saw some drawings of that and it looked really nice. And then I think the only other thing, Joe, was the limits of our review on the south entrance area. So we can go through that a little bit more.
So, would the architect like to run their slides, or would you like me to run the slides for you? I've unmuted
I can run the slides. Thank you.
Mauricio. Okay,
Yep.
great.
And Commissioner
You-
Shelton, do you want to say something before we start? Or not?
Thank you,
Sorry,
Brad.
we're here.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. I really appreciate it. And commissioners, thank you for the time tonight.
Maybe just introduce yourself for the public, because I just sort of threw you in there.
No No problem, no problem. So anyway, Eamon Shelton, Commissioner of Property Management. We have care and custody of City Hall. As always, we appreciate the commissioner's collaboration and consideration tonight. And I'll pass it over to Mo from Sasaki.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Hi, Mo Gomez from Sasaki. I'll be giving a presentation on the fourth floor terrace in the South Plaza. I'm just going to share a screen a second. Here, give me one moment.
And so commissioners know what to expect. I think you're going to go through the entire proposal and then maybe we'll circle back and sort of take the comments and conversation chunk by chunk. Does that work for you?
Yes. Should I get started?
Yep.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to present Boston City Hall Plaza. This is phase 2 of work that was done in phase 1. If you're familiar, we did the phase 1 was everything essentially north of the main entrance of City Hall. And so now we're focused on phase 2. Phase 2 consists of the fourth floor terrace and the South Plaza, and we'll talk about that in a moment. For this presentation, I'll begin with a general overview of the fourth floor terrace and then dive into what we're calling a little bit more detail about 5 key impact areas on the fourth floor terrace, and then provide you all with an overview of the South Plaza as well. Joe mentioned we've been in touch with Chelsea and Joe and reviewed a number of these items with them, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So starting out with an overview of the fourth floor terrace. For those familiar with the fourth floor terrace, here's an axon view of the condition. And generally, we're going to be doing repairs across the entire fourth floor area. Most of that's driven by the need for repair because of drainage issues across the entire zone, including what we've been calling the upper plaza, where the central skylight is, and this lower plaza area that connects to the west ramp. All the paving and waterproofing would be torn up and replaced with new waterproofing and paving throughout the entire zone. But we will be focusing on 5 key areas, which are the central skylight, the gridded skylight portion, what we call the ramps, which are the 2 ramps located here in the existing conditions, a mezzanine area because it's linked to the upper mezzanine, and then what we've been calling the west terrace area, which is the zone that faces out towards the main plaza. So this is a view of the existing conditions, and this is a view of the proposed conditions for that same space. Now there's a lot of nuance to this and we'll go through in detail for each of these, but just showing how the potential impact to that space would be and what's entailed for each one of those. Generally, the modifications are pretty similar to what's existing, with the exception of a few key spots, which we'll talk about in a moment. So first, I'll talk about those key impact areas, and we'll begin with the central skylight condition, the existing condition and the proposed condition. Here are a couple photos of the existing condition. Shows you the condition of the skylight and the cladding around it. And that cladding extends in and around what is this sort of banquette seat area as well too. One of the main drivers for repair and modification of the central skylight are the waterproofing and water infiltration within the central skylight. Not only is there continual water damage created from leakage that occurs through the skylight, instances during major storm events where there's actually, this is a video snip of water literally barreling down through that space and into the lower building and area of the second floor. So the modifications proposed include repairing and modifying the facade and treatment of the metal cladding on that system, but replacing it with upgraded, more sustainable and appropriate materials, and also resurrecting the bench that was proposed in the original design, but not necessarily constituted in the full build out. Here's a view of that condition from the mezzanine area looking out. Generally height, size, scale of the central skylight remain same. And that bench feature was something that was proposed in the original drawings from the 60s. Slightly different configuration with a back issue to it, but that in the future, in the approach that we're taking for drainage, adding another back element to that would provide some conflict with the drainage approach, and so sort of resurrecting a portion of that at the perimeter to provide a more useful seating edge at that area. The existing skylights currently allow water to actually penetrate all the way down and through that space into a series of gutters. And a lot of that water damage occurs all around the periphery of those gutters and around that perimeter, as well as all the glazing that's occurring inside the space here. So the upgrades would actually eliminate the need to have all the maintenance and waterproofing issues within the skylight and instead replace it with a slightly canted new glazing feature at the top, allowing scupper details to provide water drainage from the top of that element out and drain out across the face and into the drainage system of the upper plaza. This would eliminate the need for maintenance, for waterproofing and repairs within the skylight, but allow for better light and visibility of the skylight from within and allow light penetration to actually access all the way down by better maintenance and cleaning of that upper glazing as well too. For the gridded skylights, this feature that's located here on the plaza's east side, the intent is to actually lower the skylights down to make a flush condition. But what you'll see here is the existing conditions of the existing skylight. There are 33 penetrations that provide this feature here. There's been over time, though, much like the central skylight, significant water damage, both at the periphery and edges of this, as well as within each one of the sort of mullion pieces as well. And it's visible not only from outside, but also from within. If you look up at the roof of the second story, you'll see, or rather the third story, you see all the water damage occurring out there as well, too. So the improvements then would take what is the existing skylights that are a series of precast elements that jut up and through the roof. They're cladded with metal cladding and consist of roughly 4.5 by 4.5 foot glazing modules across the top with these gutters, where that also has been features a lot of concern about penetration and waterproofing. Penetration of water and waterproofing issues, and would replace them then with a flush skylight that we're still working out and trying to come up with the detail with this. But we did take the comments and feedback that we got from Chelsea and Joe to make this feature resemble much of the skylights that were there. And the actual open glazing area would be roughly 4.5 by 4.5 feet wide. But this would all be a flush walkable surface, increasing the opportunity for program area. The other thing it does is allows more light to enter that second story level. Because currently what you see here in this image on the right-hand side, the existing conditions, half of that, or there's a chunk rather of those skylights that are situated directly underneath one of the 5th floor hoods, which really limits the amount of light. There's only roughly about 6 feet of actual space between that. And so it significantly limits the opportunity for natural light that comes through that upper level on the 9th floor to reach down into that space. And so the improvements would really be focused not only on that upper level, creating more program space, but also on creating a more vibrant and visible light to access into the second story. Sorry, this is... Here are a few images of the 5th floor from above. You can see that now this also represents the changes that would happen at the central skylight, as well as the gridded skylights. Here you can see that pattern of 33 protrusions leading up. And so based on the comments and feedback that we got, we looked at glazing situation that would then cast itself down flush, allowing you to access this. It's a walkable surface, but that would still harken back to the old mullions and spacing of the existing gridded skylight. Here it also provides, not only would allow better penetration of light at night, but also casting light back up through the second story, a more uniform condition at the floor level as well too, of light penetrating out at the floor level as well. Here's another view of that coming as if you were coming out from the Congress Street stair, showing you what the view is beyond, allowing you to then visibly access into the space, making the central skylight and the rest of the area more prominent by lowering that down and creating a more flexible surface there. The third item that we looked at were the ramps. These are a series of 2 ramps that are located roughly within the center of the 4th floor terrace. Here are some existing conditions of photos of that. This is the one ramp on one side, and you see the smaller area ramp on the other side. But one of the major concerns about these ramps is that the ramps as they are currently are not only not accessible, but are hazardous as a walking condition to all people with all mobilities, difficult to navigate, and become incredibly slippery during rain events and storm events. The ramp that was added in the, I believe in the early 90s, is also no longer a conforming ramp condition, and so would need upgrades and modifications to it too. It's also not an equitable access condition, which we tried and strove for in phase 1, in that it creates a separate perimeter area that people have to use for accessibility and aren't able to use the same area as everybody else. So as an axon view, here it is highlighted, those two areas of concern, those large ramps that lead you down on either side, and the non-conforming ramp condition that's on the periphery of that lower ramp. What that meant is that those ramps eventually would get you down to this lower area, but there was no access or accessibility to what we call the West Terrace area as well too. So in the new improvements, we would be infilling that upper ramp and creating a whole new program space that's linked to the upper terrace, as well as then resurrecting the intention of the ramp that was there before. But in order to make it a more conforming ramp condition, we needed a little bit extra dimension on that. So in lieu of the stair that we're located up in here, we would extend that ramp up to this level, allowing you then to have fully accessible access up to this West Terrace area and to this upper terrace area too. So all of this would be linked in a fully accessible zone within what was generally the same area of the old ramps. Now with the new elevator that you're familiar with, we suspect that there's going to be even more options and potential for programming up in this space. So by infilling the upper ramp portion, significantly increases the opportunity for programming, but also creates now universally and equitable access all the way up and through those two spaces, and links you to a new access at the West Terrace. Here you can see a view of the existing conditions from what we call the lower terrace up into the upper terrace space. In order to do that infill condition, we'd be filling in with a new wall up that upper level, creating actually an overlook that gets you actually great sight lines out to the new plaza as well. It's really difficult and challenging to see the new plaza from a lot of the locations because of the parapet conditions, but this would actually allow you more direct and unimpeded access and visibility out. The width of the ramp is now expanded, allowing a lot of flexibility for all uses to be able to use that entire ramp together. Again, the existing conditions on the left and shows you how that expansion and infill of the ramp on the right-hand side would provide you new overlook areas and new seating areas. In all of these cases, we're looking at, based on the feedback that we got from Joe and Chelsea, is ways to sort of harken back to some of these original elements that we were removing. So in this case, near the ramps, there's an existing barrier wall that's located here. It's roughly a parapet height, so around 42 inches, not quite high enough to sit on. So one option was to look at a flush banding condition that would reference back to that original wall location in that location, but also the opportunity of maybe considering it, a portion of that, as a reconstructed bench slightly lower than the original one, but allowing some area for seating that still gives you access in the back, say, between the two program spaces. So beginning to look at that as well too. Then when we move to the mezzanine area, again, this is located right adjacent to where the new elevator is. More people will be coming to these spaces. And so how do we then make more opportunity in areas linked to some of these other zones? And so this was looking at the existing conditions where you see the stair and double stair located down here, significant waterproofing and drainage issues in this area and some of these other spaces. But because of the location for the elevator and some of the other improvements, it left an area of stair that was really no longer going to be functional, as well as left most of that West Terrace area as inaccessible and out of use for the public to use for programming. In the improvements, again, we'd be referencing back to where those stairs are with a series of paving elements and bands that would harken back to those locations, but introducing a ramp in lieu of the stairs. And through that becomes an opportunity to add a new little mezzanine area, sort of private little quiet nook up within the upper terrace zone, and then creating a fully accessible route out to the west terrace areas. Here's a view of the existing conditions on the left, assuming that the elevator project is going in, and then showing what that little mezzanine space with the ramp adjacent to it would look like with the paving bands in the ground. Here again is a view going up towards the west terrace. Up from the west terrace up into the upper plaza, showing you the sort of the reference image there. And then finally moving to the west terrace zone that we call this area, that's a space that leads you from that upper zone down and into the space. Here are some existing photos of that space. Again, these were the steps that we just saw before, but if you turn around, you can see the condition behind, and you can actually see the tarps that were located there. There's been also significant water and penetration of water into the lower areas below, and so improvement is needed on these spaces. Here you can see the damage from leakage from within some of the office spaces and the tarps that have been located there for some time. Excuse me. So in this zone, again, most of this was inaccessible, not accessible to the public, and really challenging from a programming standpoint because of this double feature stair, limiting the amount of sort of flat area that was allowable to use. And so in these upgrades with the ramps that we talked about before and access, gives an opportunity to then create all of this area flush and level, opening up this space a little bit more for usability and program, and presents a nice opportunity to overlook the plaza area as well from that space. And actually is one of the few places within the fourth floor terrace where you actually get some semblance of natural light by not being under the overhang in that area there. So here's a view of existing conditions and then a view of the proposed conditions. You see the reference back to the walls and the stairs that were there and the paving, but generally the same. And then here's a view from that terrace area out. It's one of the few areas that you don't have the overhang, so you can see out into the terrace, out from the plaza. And this becomes, by leveling this whole zone out, becomes a space for new programming as the city decides to use it. And so that's generally the overview of the fourth floor terrace, those key areas. Now a quick overview of the South Plaza. One of the main drivers for the South Plaza renovations and modifications is that there's significant structural conditions below in the garage that needed improvement. And so a lot of the energy is going to be spent for the underside repairs for all of that, which won't be visible at the top surface. But at the top and at the South Plaza level, which you can see here, is all the area that's located from the building to Sears Crescent, including the Congress Street stair all the way up to the vent shaft that has the flagpoles. A lot of that driver was about how do we create a more accessible route up from those areas and into the main entrance of the building. It was the main focus of phase one and then continues to be one in phase two. In this area though, because this plinth stairs created a significant barrier to mobility, we looked at an opportunity of creating a new ramping condition that was located adjacent and in the same character as a plinth that you saw there before, but tucking it into the side of this area and then allowing new access, accessible access for everybody to lead you up into the main plaza, still providing and not precluding the access to there. Now that ramp condition is located along this line, which is very intentional. You can actually see this line that extends out through here and extends what is down the center of Congress Street stair is actually the limit of where the underground of the phase one condition of the building occurred. So we actually have programmable space of the building underneath this zone in here, but everything outside of that is then the second phase of what was City Hall Plaza, built in the 1970s, which is really to extend the garage out all the way to Sears Crescent and reconstruct all of this space. So we're not actually technically over the City Hall building structure beyond that line. So we looked carefully at where those lines were located to integrate a new ramping feature that allowed us to get up into that space without necessarily significant modifications to either the building and structure below, or really the intention of these stairs, which were stairs and looking at it more of a seating plinth, much like you see in the speaker's corner area that we designed in phase one. Here's a view from the Washington Mall, as if you were coming from the Washington Mall looking out. And so here that plinth of stairs becomes your direct access to the main entrance, but it's also significant barrier to mobility. And so we still resurrected that idea of a plinth, but instead of creating the stairs, created it with seating edges and then tucked the ramp in the back here, which you don't see from this angle, but there would be a ramp. And it's not really a ramp, it's just an inclined walk that leads you up into the main plaza through that space. Here's a view coming up the Congress Street stair. And so as you reach that upper level where the beer garden is, it opens up that space. And this line, again, is the delineation between all the space under here is existing building. All the space beyond this is just over the garage. And so by adding the ramp here, we were able to work with just the garage structure, leading you up and into the main plaza. And then the Congress Street stair, the intention was to maintain and resurrect sort of the existing condition. And we're basically doing that. But in order to rebuild this stair, we had to look at, sorry, there's a lot of structural issues with the stair currently. It's right now being shored with temporary shoring. So in order to reconstruct this stair, we're going to have to actually rebuild the entire structure, given the amount of damage that's under that stair currently. But we'd resurrect it almost in kind, with slight modifications to some of the details to meet more current code, but generally would be the same as what we have currently. And that's a very quick run through of all those conditions. I'll jump back out. If anyone has specific questions on any of those.
Thank you.
spaces.
I'm going to open the floor to commissioners at this point and invite any commissioners to ask questions of the applicant or make comments.
I think that, Brad, if it's okay, we'd like to take comments sort of in the order of all the breakdowns that Mo gave us.
Yeah.
So like start with, I think,
Let's do them sort of
ramps.
one at a time so it's
Yeah.
manageable.
Here's that.
Yes.
Yeah.
If we can use this, so if we can first take comments on the skylight, then the gridded skylight, then the ramps.
I think it's a great idea.
And
So
who has comments on the
Mo, do you want to
gridded?
flip to like just an overall image of the
Sure.
central skylight to
Yep.
help people remind them of what we're talking about? And
There we go. Yep.
Thank you.
And as we go through each, I'd like Joe to remind everyone what the staff comments are on each.
yeah. Chelsea, do you want to call on people or do you want me to?
Totally up to you. I'm
Or
happy
Liz.
to.
I can do it.
Or Liz,
sure.
thank you.
Yep. John Freeman.
I just had a question first. How much height difference? I've never been up here. I have to remedy that, of course. How much height difference is there between the different areas approximately? And is the height because of the area of and the height of the spaces underneath it, or something else that was making these differences?
Sorry, just to get a little bit better clarification. Are you referring to the height underneath, say, the hood to the
Well,
to the upper
all the
terrace?
places that are, and again, maybe because I haven't been here, where you're proposing ramps between the terrace, the mezzanine, and the area that you're making more skylight, there's a vertical difference in height, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah.
Like how much is that?
Actually, I don't. Roughly, I don't know the
6 feet,
number.
8
I would.
feet?
No, it's more than that. It's Actually, I would defer to Robert, who's one of our architects on the project here. I don't know if Robert, you're on here right now.
You might not be unmuted.
Well, in the original
Yeah.
design that created these differences, what created it? The size and height of the spaces underneath, or something else?
Yeah, the original, I mean, the spaces are all, the vertical dimension from the upper terrace to some of these spaces is all generated by, you're either underneath these hoods, and these are the lowest conditions. So I want to say it's in the range of about 10 feet, maybe more. So those hoods to the 5th floor create that dimension. And then everywhere, generally almost in all other locations, you're up against what is the underside of the 6th floor level. And so there's a much more significant change. So it's roughly twice that
in the
amount.
design, was it something where they intentionally made different levels, or it was a result kind of happenstance of the heights, the ceiling heights of the areas underneath,
Oh, I see.
or a combination, or?
Probably,
So you were always
yeah.
meant to be able to traverse through this
Right.
building and not have to go into it exactly. So it was meant always as a public
No, I understand that, Chelsea. I'm just curious how the difference in heights came about. Is it just that was it more happenstance? Was it more sort of is there an intentional, something that I don't see? Because not having been there, was it
So
intentional hierarchy to the spaces or?
at the highest level, you're over that main staircase that or escalator, now known as staircase area. So that's like a very grand.
So it's a result of the height of the space underneath.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
where the ramps come up, you're coming up over offices. And so I think that those could afford to be lower ceiling heights, but that's just my general take.
Yeah, and this terrace is even with the fourth floor mezzanine, so where the
Yeah.
elevator that was approved is going to be ending.
Yeah. In general, though, I think I understand the comment. In general, though, we're not really changing the relationship of the floor plane to the ceiling height above it, though. The only time that there is maybe a slightly more significant change is in those ramping conditions, where we infilled a portion just beyond the central skylight, where if you were walking down the ramp, you would be at a slightly lower level, and your relationship to that ceiling height would be slightly different. But instead, we're maintaining this level here at the upper plaza. So your relationship to it is still roughly the same as if you were at the upper level, but we're never in all our modifications, we're never significantly changing or changing at all really that condition of floor to ceiling height. Does that help answer your
Yeah, it
question?
wasn't a comment, actually. It was a question about how it came about
Yeah.
and the original intent in the building. No, I think you've answered it. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bertucci?
Yes, thanks. On this central skylight, so you're adding in now, or you're recreating the seat wall that was designed but never built. And do you have that? Yeah, the section, that's what I wanted to see here. So right now you've got you're going to create you're not doing the seat wall as it's drawn here. That's the original design, but you're just doing it with the exception of lobbing off the back. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, generally. And these are details that are still getting worked out. The intention is
Yeah.
to do something similar to this with a concrete back or with a concrete seat,
Yeah.
but without the backer because of the way the drainage system.
All right. So I mean, I think that's great. I'm happy to see it go, the seawall be put back, whether it has the back or not on it isn't really that much of an issue for me. I do find it a little strange though, the way you're having the drainage go across that. You're having it come down the slope of the sides of the skylight, and then you're just literally having it go across the surface of the seat wall. And to me, that seems like you're forcing the possibility of there being some kind of seepage or leakage between the interface of the seat wall and yes, right there. And wondered if there's a way to literally uh, physically separate the two, but visually have them be connected so the water goes behind and under the seat wall rather than over it. So there's like space for that water to flow behind it and under the seawall.
Yeah, we can look at that detail. Yeah.
Yeah, just because I see that as being over time, that's gonna leak. So, so all right. Then a couple of questions I had. I never saw this section, so I never really realized how deep that central skylight was, and just wondered, do you know why that was made that way, in such a deep pit, so to speak? I mean, there must have been some kind of function behind it. I don't know, but it seems like a strange detail to create and a complicated detail to create without it having some kind of function. But nothing that you've come across as far as.
I don't know if we've necessarily uncovered the full reason why. It is a complicated detail. And in fact, what's not showing here is there's actually a grate on top of here so that to limit people from going in there. But otherwise,
but junk
rain
gets
and
in there.
water and
Yeah.
air just comes all the way through here. Yeah. And so it has been a very complicated detail to, for the city to maintain, to actually get down there and access.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of complications throughout. So really it's, the intention of the final design was just to sort of structurally maintain all of that as it is, especially when you look up from the inside. There wouldn't be any significant visual change. It's just that from a maintenance standpoint, by literally just bringing the glazing up to the top surface gives you more direct access to clean it, maintain it, protect it, and then and just dealing with the drainage through scupper details that we would.
All right, and so from the underside of the new glass down to all of that open area, that's all going to remain in its original
Correct
material, so to speak.
Yeah, we wouldn't be touching. I mean, it would be cleaning because there's a lot of staining, but yeah.
And you'll be able to get in there, access that somehow?
There would be this would all then be open, so it'd be challenging. So there would be limitations to how physical access, but you could get the maintenance equipment to actually go in and clean out some of these as
all right. And then the surface material of that angled portion of the outside, is that zinc coated copper or something, or?
Yes, it would be. Yeah, currently it's zinc coated lead.
Lead, probably.
Yeah. And so replacing it with something similar in its character, but with a more sustainable and material.
All right, and so then the other question with the grid of the skylights, again, it's like a strangest detail. I don't know. Do you have any reason or understanding of why these skylights were made like this? Having these almost chimney kinds of effect. I find it really strange. But you're basically going to then now take those and have it become walkable glass, I'm guessing. Is that
correct?
Yeah. Is that good? And that will be what, like a frosted glass or some kind of fretwork on it, or what's?
Yeah, there'd be some fretting or something, so you don't literally see exactly what's above you, but being able to allow enough light penetration in, and by lowering it down, giving even more opportunity for light. And so we're still working out those details specifically, but what we looked at then based on the comments too is that this dimension where you actually had clear glazing in the existing skylights would be replicated in plan with then some elements of the mullions referenced back into the flat surface where you had those, both gutters and edges. And so we'll work out
I find that to be
those
the
in more
strangest detail. Honestly, I would love to know what the provocation for that was originally, because it's obviously a very deliberate maneuver for some reason. But okay, and so then moving on to the South Plaza, I think is what you call it. Yeah, so that, I mean, there's a lot of spatial reconfiguration, and I tried to keep track of it and probably have missed some of the concepts of it, but it sounds like it's going to be improving it to the point of it being more space available, and obviously a better way of addressing the ADA requirements for it as well. So, but this view here is one thing I was curious about, because I mean, I've always loved this plinth. I always thought that was a very dramatic piece of this original design. So I mean, I understand what you're doing here, but if you just flip back to the slide you just had, So, because one of the things I thought, I mean, I kind of liked is as you're making your way up the stairs from Congress Street, and then you have a long landing. You had yet now that last portion of steps to traverse to get up to the plinth, and so you're replacing all those stairs now, or that elevation change, I should say, with seat walls. But I was wondering, was there any thought to maybe just that side of the Congress Street stairs, if you had the stairs continue in the way that they were, rather than wrap those seat walls around, so that at least the echo of it, was still there, and then the seat walls would then be on the I mean, I don't know. It was just a wondering if it was a way to kind of keep a little bit of the idea of what once was there.
We did look at that, and I think one of the challenges of making those stairs versus the sort of seating, we have currently, this is where the city puts out the AstroTurf and creates the picnic tables and becomes a program element. The challenge though is that it's still a circulation space, and so by having the stairs located all around that zone is that you're still navigating around all of those elements. And so, it's a nice way of creating space, but it's still directly within circulation. In this case, By taking out the stairs and actually replicating it with a seating edge, it's twofold. One is gives then an isolated zone that is not necessarily circulation, but a dedicated program space that is at that same level, but no longer directly in line with everybody's access through that space. It also provides then an overlook. Actually, you get a great vantage point. We don't have the view of it. I mean, we have it somewhere, but the vantage point back out towards Faneuil Hall. So it becomes a place where not only you could sit and they could, the picnic tables or where else the city puts out could be brought back in this space, but it also gives you a point and vantage point to see out into the overall
Right.
Quincy
I
Market.
guess the only thing that I'm seeing here now is that if you're coming from Congress Street, you go up that massive stairway, and then you have a big landing, and then you have the rest of the stairs to go up. So you basically go to those entry doors in a straight line. Now you're being forced to kind of go up the Congress Street stairs and go all the way around the ramp and then turn a corner in order to get into the doors. It's kind of this big circuitous, and I just think, to me it seems like if you had a little bit of the stairs still on that portion. I mean, I guess I understand what you're saying now, because if you put stairs there, you're going to get rid of a space and create a circulation zone. So I mean, I guess I can understand. I'm just thinking of the kind of inconvenience of somebody wanting to come up from Congress Street to get into those third floor doors there. You got to go all the way around. So that's just a thought. So, and I think, geez, I think that was all I had here. I can't recall the rest of the maneuvers that you had, or the other spaces that you had. So I'm gonna just, because I can't think of anything right now. I think I'll leave it at that. So, and then the paving, you said you're going to do all wire cut brick all the way through. Yeah, okay. And yeah, so I mean that'll be, and then the stairs and this, it's all going to be the same granite that's there. You're just going to obviously if you're doing like these seat walls, I'm assuming the seat walls are going to be granite or not.
They would. We would be using the granite. The granite that's out there currently is the Madison Pink. It's proven to be very brittle and it's demonstrated a lot of challenges. When we looked at phase 1, 2, we looked at actually either A, trying to reuse that granite, or B, trying to bring that granite back. And because of, well, one, sourcing, and then two, that's actual physical material conditions, we found that it wasn't quite living up to sort of the standards that we would want for longevity. And so we actually introduced and used a different granite, the autumn brown. That was used throughout phase 1. That was used at the MBTA Plaza. It's a much more robust, heavier, and it has a nice blend with the brick too. And so the intention currently is to use that same granite throughout to link all those spaces together.
Yeah, and then any railings that you've got introduced, that will be the bronze that's been established, rather than a painted sort of galvanized thing.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, I think that's all I can think of that kind of hit me when I was first looking at this. So it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to, like I said, because I barely went through these spaces, and I think I went up to that terrace only once. So it's gonna be nice to introduce the public back to these spaces. So that's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Haney?
Hi, David's question's about the big steps at this top of this plaza. I can see coming up from Congress it works, but I think for somebody who's visiting for the first time walking east towards Faneuil Hall, I don't think they'll walk if they don't go down the ramp, they'll go along the upper plaza, and then they realize that they would have to backtrack 100 feet to get down to the ramp, because you can't walk down the big steps. So I think there has to be some way for somebody to have regular steps within the large seating steps. David's comment about the walkover glass skylights, the 32 grid skylights. So you'll need some sort of ceramic frit for anti-slip reasons, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then the center skylight seating bench area. The scupper issue, I understand that, but I'm hoping that I would probably suggest that at the scupper, the material changes in some way that it will basically channel the water away within like a mini culvert. Otherwise, we're going to have some discoloring or weathering effect that's different, rather than just having it just cascade over it. So somehow that has to be channeled in a way that's much more of a design deliberate method. Or was there an option to do a walkover glass skylight over this entire thing so the water sheds off entirely on all four sides instead of just one scupper point?
Yeah, we did actually look at that, and actually had a series of different options where this whole thing would be similar to the other one where it'd be flush walkable skylight.
Yeah.
But given the significance of the central skylight, the intention was trying to keep as much of it as possible. So while this is actually a glazing that is technically walkable, so in case anyone did get
Yeah.
up here, it wouldn't, they could still withhold that. But these details of the scupper, and I think, you know, we heard the comment too about here too. We're gonna have to look at that in more detail. We haven't, the South Plaza is on a different design track timeline than fourth floor terrace. And so as we get into those details, we'll take that into account and look more carefully at these conditions
Okay.
from the glazing to here and then from the edges down there. And I think try and figure out how we could do that more successfully, perhaps.
And just a reminder to commissioners, this eventually will come to the design review subcommittee for details, materials, all of that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mauricio.
I have one
Commissioner
quick
Ward,
question.
Hyatt. Oh,
Nope,
sorry.
sorry,
Bella.
I didn't raise my hand. Sorry.
Commissioner Ward, Hyatt.
I was waiting to get to the ramps section, but I think we're kind of going speaking
We're
for
out of
everything
order.
else. We're out of order. Yeah, I just had a question. What is the proposed material for the wall infill where you need a wall to complete a ramp?
For a wall
So
template, it would
unlike
still, yeah.
slide 30, for instance, I
yeah.
think. If it's the same
Are
as
these wall
Yeah,
infills?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. It would still be cast in place concrete in these conditions, trying to, in this case, right here, this is a full infill between the two fins that currently exist.
Mhm.
So it's a cast in place with the void space in the middle to avoid even additional loading from below, but the intention is to try and get close to the existing sort of materiality of those fins. The wall that's located along here would be actually an additive wall on top of there's this, as the ramp slopes down, there's a sloping wall adjacent to it. And so then we would be infilling on top of that, again, trying to match as close as we could to the existing conditions. The size, scale, and width of those would be the same as what those fins or columns are.
That might be really difficult to do considering the age and it just might be really difficult to match existing, right? So
Yep.
I don't know. I'm not sure if you go to the next two slides forward. So this one, actually, sorry, that one right there.
Yep.
I'm kind of not I'm not sure how I feel about kind of eroding like the reading of a column and to be something that's really kind of engaged fully on two sides with a wall, and then the wall doesn't quite line up with the height of the other wall, the existing wall beyond and the bay beyond on the right. I don't know. It's tricky. Kind of makes me think it shouldn't be exactly coplanar. Maybe just set back a little bit so it acknowledges that's an additive, it's a change, not the existing. I mean, I think, like I say, I don't think you're going to be able to match the materials and certainly the coloration anyway, but my next question is on slide 45. is, I think it was 40. Nope. Okay, not 45. It's the big ramp that is kind of a aerial view. I'm sorry, I'm looking
This one?
through
No.
the deck there. Oh, I think it's slide. Yeah, it's 45 of the yes. So the next slide after that that shows the proposed conditions.
Oh, we made some adjustments here. so
Five. It says 5 West Terrace proposed modifications.
Okay, let me just.
Yeah. Yes, that one. What is the slope of the ramp? The big the ramp on the left
This one?
that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this would be under. So in order to meet accessible criteria, it's 1 in 12 with a landing, then 1 in 12 gets you up to then. This would be a full landing. This spot, and then another 1
Oh,
in
it's 1 in
12.
12.
Yeah.
Don't
or
you
just
need?
just under 1 in 12. Yeah. I mean, or just less than 1 in 12.
Well,
for
I know, but
tolerances.
don't you need? Doesn't there need to be a certain minimum distance between the handrails?
Well, there would be railings on both sides.
No, I
In
mean,
this case.
maybe I'm not refreshed on my mass access board criteria, but I thought there was a maximum distance that you could go between handrails for someone that's using a ramp. I think it.
Yeah. We'll have to take a look at that from a code perspective. I
Okay.
think there was something that allowed for the condition, but we'll
Okay, because it would be a very
Yeah.
different thing if you had
Right.
handrails every like 7 feet or 5 feet or something on center. And what I was hoping that you would say is that it was a 1 in 20 or slightly less so that you wouldn't need a landing there, but
no, I wish because
yeah.
that would be a
Okay.
much different kind of condition. Yeah.
All right, okay.
Commissioner Walker?
Yeah, I think I want to amplify or slightly modify Commissioner Ward Hyatt's comments on these infill pieces of concrete. First, I think it's probably difficult, but even if you sort of have a nice reveal or something, and others on this commission are much more qualified than I to speak on what preservation, quote unquote, requires, but I think it probably makes sense to distinguish old from new in some way, not perhaps in a way that's shouting at you, but in a way that recognizes that these infill walls are in fact infill walls. And my other general question just regarding this whole sort of 4th floor terrace condition, and I know this is early days, but are you looking at lighting? Because those are still going to be sort of dark and under the 5th floor.
Yeah, part of this renovation would be all the lighting. So there was actually work that was done relatively recently to all the lighting around the periphery of the 4th floor terrace ceiling. And so then that same sort of renovation of the lights that are in the coffers of those ceilings would be done throughout this entire space. And so that would give you all the lighting that you would need from an overhead perspective. And then there would be lighting integrated into the railings because of access and egress. As well too for those pathways, but generally all that lighting, we wouldn't necessarily be changing the lighting intent. It would just be updating and renovating all those soffit lightings that's located within that. You don't see it in this view, but
Yeah,
all the grids,
new fixtures in existing apertures.
Correct. Yep. And they've already started that, so there's already precedent for doing that around the perimeter. We'd just be doing it now in the infill of the rest of the 4th floor.
That's it for me.
Great.
Mo, could you go back to that West Terrace proposed? I think we touched on everything except for the brick, the wire cut brick and the brick with the mortar joint. So I just wanted to kind of explain to
Yeah.
So the idea was, as you know, the brick inside the building, the paving inside the building has the brick with the mortar joint and it matches the same brick outside. So something that I feel personally should be maintained is that same type of paving pattern, at least at the level part of the 4th floor terrace. So, where it's meeting the curtain walls and around the central skylight, with a wire cut brick being used for everything ramping down to the plaza. And I don't know, Mo, if that was
Yeah.
something you looked at
Yes,
at all since we met.
we hadn't had time. No, we were planning on looking at that and providing more detail. So yeah, you're right, Joe. Sorry. That that was the comment. And we haven't like provided something that studied that or illustrated that, but
I also think you will need to look at code for that for ADA surface.
Mhm.
Because I know it's not a preferred treatment, but there will be, it's either that or there'll be like a very stark difference between one brick and another at the new curtain wall, the new old curtain wall.
yeah.
I'm not seeing other commissioner hands, but commissioners can continue to comment, but let's also open this to public comment.
Commissioner Orlando.
Hi, just a couple quick things more as maybe a couple things we could bring to the formal design review committee for the future. Have you done an overlay that shows existing versus new in terms of like wall relocations and infills for all of these locations? I know you kind of have them like side by side images.
Yeah, and really, I mean, the only times there's a few times, and these axes sort of represented, maybe it's not clear, and we could highlight it more, is there this overlay between existing to proposed does indicate where, and you can see the changes where generally that wall would be an existing wall that's replicated either with a bench or as a flush condition. There's two walls. There's a wall down here that would be removed for the ramp condition. And then the rest of these are really just stairs that would be referenced in paving, and the materials of that we need to study further. But there'd be hearkening back to stairs, and stairs that were located spaces there and there. And then we just heard the comments about how do you put in new walls in these two locations that maybe doesn't quite match with the existing, but somehow demarcates a slight difference. We'd work
Okay.
on the details of that too. Yeah.
No, that was actually helpful. I think in the side by side images, I was starting to feel like there was a lot more modification, perhaps, than there really is.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. And then also just going back to Angela's comments as well on material matching. In the design review committee, could we possibly talk about what your plan would be for material mock-ups, not just samples, but actual like mock-ups that you would be including in the scope? Great, thanks.
Yep.
Commissioner Jacques.
Thanks. Just sort of going over everything that's been said tonight. And again, I think, pulling some of Commissioner Ward Hyatt's questions, you've had a lot to do to contemplate and consider the ADA accessibility through these three spaces that we're looking at tonight. Would you say that you've addressed them all, or are there still areas that you're sort of noodling or you're hoping to get a little further into compliance and, just taking it a next step forward, how the response to accessibility will sort of inform the next spaces that you're looking at?
I think for the areas that we are touching, we've addressed with some comments about some of the railings and questions about that. We'll focus on that. We've addressed all the areas that we are touching to the degree that we meet the accessible criteria and code for purposes. Now, there are areas that, in order to get accessibility from certain areas, we'll need some modification in the future, but those aren't within our current scopes of work. So within our current scope of work, we'd be addressing what we need for accessible conditions. Yeah.
So I guess I would ask, would that be in your scope at a later time? I mean, maybe that's an Elizabeth, Chelsea, Joe question, but how would you be responding to the remaining areas for accessibility?
I would maybe defer to our client on that because those are future phases of the construction. Yeah.
But the intent is to address them.
In the future, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eamon.
Any other further comments? Otherwise, we'll go to Commissioner Haney.
Okay. Getting back to Angela's comment on the infill, the vertical wall infill for concrete. Would the brick be a possible candidate material for that instead of the concrete? I'm thinking about the whole like south or the east elevation of City Hall that has a lot of vertical concrete or brick, and I don't know, is that a possible use for these ramp areas?
Yeah. It could be, and you're right, there's a lot of brick. It's just within the fourth floor terrace area, though, there's no real precedent for brick as a vertical, except for the parapet walls as a vertical condition. So we could study that. I think it would be maybe perhaps incongruous with the rest of the vertical pieces at this level, but that could be an option we could study and discuss further in design review.
The brick walking surface is all being replaced anyways, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right. That might be one way to homogenize it all together. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Commissioner Gagno.
Hi there. I think I want to make an overarching comment that I think it's the amount of thought that's gone into these changes makes total sense at this time when material is worn out and needs to be replaced anyway. So how do we, grapple with elements of the original design that haven't really worked well after 58 years? So I just want, to say that I appreciate it, the thoughtfulness that you are proposing to all these changes. And I think that in aggregate, they're going to make a result in a major improvement. So thank you for your excellent work on this.
Commissioner Hart.
Hey, I just want to say thank you for the work done so far. I have never actually been on the fourth floor terrace, so I am excited about that possibility. I realize that tonight we're very focused on exterior elements, and I just want to make sure at some point we get back to the interior and figure out how we're going to get accessible bathrooms on every floor and deal with some of the access issues within the building that frankly plague people every day that they come to City Hall. So I wanted to just put that out there. I would really appreciate some kind of presentation sooner than later on how we're going to deal with all the interior access issues, chiefly the bathrooms on every floor. So, not the most glitzy thing, but frankly, arguably probably the most important.
I thank you, Commissioner Hart. This is Commissioner Shelton from Property Management. Yeah, we're very aware of the access issues of all the restrooms, railings, doorways. And so the answer is, in phases, but as we do any work in the building for any spaces, and some of those spaces will come before you in future meetings. Accessibility will be top of mind, and so we will be addressing those over time as we touch any area of the building, including restrooms.
Thank you, Commissioner Shelton.
And you,
Yeah, I would just I sort of forgot to ask for this, but I was thinking that something that might strengthen the presentation for design review is very clear connections to the CMP. That obviously UTIL had a big hand in that, but when they were doing their presentations, they definitely looked at the element that they were proposing changes to, and they would list what was listed in the CMP. And I think that was really useful. So that might be something that you want to add here.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Not seeing any other hands, so if we are if everyone has made their comments or asked their questions, we will close this agenda item and move on.
Oh, Brad, did you want to go to public comment? I don't think we ever opened.
I did call for public comment, but if that wasn't clear, I will ask again.
Okay, looks good.
Okay. Thank you, applicants. I think everyone appreciated that, and we look forward to the next steps on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is staff updates, and I'll turn it over to Elizabeth Sherva to update us on any staff matters.
Yes, thank you. The next Boston Landmarks Commission hearing will be on Tuesday, June 10th at 6 p.m. At this moment, BLC staff anticipates presenting 2 study reports at that meeting. The staff has been working very diligently and we're working towards bringing a number of study reports to the commission over the next few months. I expect at least 1 to 2 study reports per hearing. Also, summer is right around the corner and many of you will be taking some vacations, hopefully. So please let me know if you have any plans or you'll be missing any meetings. And thank you, Chair Walker. That is all I have.
All right, thank you. I always want to pause at this moment to just open the floor to commissioners for any concerns, comments, thoughts. Commissioner Haney.
There was one email today about a change in a meeting in November. Is that correct, from Tuesday to a Wednesday?
Yes, that was Veterans Day lands on a Tuesday this year, and so it'll be moved to the Wednesday, the 12th.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other commissioners? Okay, if there is nothing else, we've reached the end of the agenda, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Someone
moved.
who's unmuted, but was that Jeff Gagnon?
It was.
I'm getting better at this. And a second, please.
I'll second that.
That was Fadi, I think, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. 2 for 2. It's a voice vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.